Wiggle, wiggle.
Like.
All right, you awesome people. So I've been getting a lot of people, even though I have a tips and tricks playlist, going through guides, things like that, it can get outdated. There's also hundreds of tanks in the games that I can get subscriber requests for, and to do tips and guides for every single one of them it's a lot of work. So what I decided to do is to simplify all of it, put all guides and try to combine them into one video. And that's what I'm going to do for you guys here. I'm not saying that all the other tank guides the other YouTubers do are invalid. They're great. They can give you some more detailed specifics, but I think this guide will give you an overarching feel of how to play with the tank and may actually be quite eye-opening. So I had created a tank guide chart, basically outlining how to play a tank based on its characteristics. The tank will tell you how to play it if you understand its characteristics, regardless if it's a tank destroyer, a medium tank, a light tank, doesn't matter. What matters is its characteristics on how you play the tank, not so much the fact of what type of tank it is. Because there's a lot of tanks that might be classified as a heavy tank, but honestly, because of its characteristics, it may make more sense to play that tank more like a medium tank. So going right into the chart, this is how you can tell how to play the tank based on its characteristics. These are just some basics. Let me know if there's any feedback you have on it, what your thoughts are. Maybe there's ways I can tweak or improve this, but I really think this is the guide of all of how to play every single tank in World of Tanks Blitz. So first off, there's just a few categories here, breaking it completely down. So 1, you have accuracy. 2, you have maneuverability. 3, you have armor. And 4, you have visibility. And each one of those categories kind of break down into these mini subcategories you can see here. And I have a few replays just to back up my thought process and how I play, but I thought creating this could be something that could really help a ton of players, regardless of what tank is being played, which is where this chart falls in. So diving right in, looking at accuracy and those characteristics. The first one, and how to read this chart, is if you have good accuracy, because of your good accuracy, you could play that tank close or very far. However, if your penetration is fair, then you want to more so play that tank more close or mid-range. So because of that, that trumps the fact that you can play that tank far away because it's got good accuracy, if that makes sense. So I'll go into a few examples of what I mean by this. So in the first one is the E75 TS. Great tank, love the thing, but let's go through an example following this chart. So looking at its accuracy, it's got the German engineering classic attributes. It's got good accuracy. So I could play this thing close or far just based on accuracy. I move down, looking at its penetration is more fair. I am not going to penetrate tanks a tier higher than me that are well armored or heavy tanks easily from really far away, like across the map. That's not really going to happen, even using premium ammo. So because of that, I'm actually going to want to play the tank more close to mid-range. And then looking at its gun depression, that'll help you know what positions are effective to play it. So the E75 TS actually has really good gun depression. You can come up over hills, really get that cannon down. And you can also play it on flat ground. It's a very diverse tank. Whereas some tanks don't have very good gun depression, you need to keep it on flatter ground. Doesn't necessarily mean you're stuck to only playing in town. You can still play out where the hills are, you just have to work around the hills. You don't want to try coming up and over the hills, because if you have bad gun depression, then you have to get your tank all the way up and slightly over the hill to get your cannon down far enough, exposing you too much, which could get you obliterated. So, gun depression, that kind of helps with positioning. Now, reload, the E75 TS has a good to fair reload, which that's not really an indicator of anything. If you have bad reload, meaning it takes a long time to reload, like the KV2 or the FV215B183, like the Death Star, has a really long reload, and therefore it has the indicator of needing support, meaning you have to have team support. You have to be around teammates to kind of help be around you and protect you a little bit, so that while you're reloading, you don't get overrun. So, and then lastly, shell velocity. The E75 TS's shell velocity is good, so close to far range, but once again, because your penetration is fair, it trumps all that, and you want to play more close or mid-range. You don't want to be too far away. Now, going into the next section, which is maneuverability. When looking at maneuverability, the E75 TS doesn't have great maneuverability. It's got a lot of armor. It's on the slower side. If you get yourself in a bad position or can see one coming, you can't evade or escape that situation quickly. So you're not really quick. You can't get out of situations, so you don't want to, or just bad situations, you don't want to be completely alone. So you do need some support from your team, at least being within view range, have teammates somewhat kind of around you, so that if there is a bad situation where like the whole team is pushing right and you decide to go on that right side of the map where your whole team goes off left and there's no one there, you're going to find yourself in a really bad position and you can't evade or escape that very quickly. So you do need to be in a position where your team can help you. Whether that's going middle of the map and you can see a lot of your team off on the other side of the map and they can support you if you get in trouble, so you can kind of get behind landscape and protect yourself, so forth. And then next, going into armor. So the E75 TS has a good armor profile, but the thing about armor is it's all about knowing its strengths and weaknesses. Every well-armored tank has its strengths and its weaknesses, whether those weaknesses are the cupola, the tiny little hatch on top, or the lower part of the hull. I highly recommend downloading the Armor Inspector or going to the BLITZ hangar online and looking at the tank's armor profile to kind of get somewhat of an understanding. Now, you'll understand and learn what the armor profile is too, just from playing the game. And so the E75 TS has a good armor profile. It does have some weaknesses that I need to be aware of, which is why there's this key indicator at the bottom of the chart. And so I can play on the front lines with this tank. Going off the key indicator, I need to know my tank's strengths and weaknesses of that armor. I need to know how to side scrape. I need to know how to angle. I need to know how to use the landscape to protect myself. And then visibility. The E75 TS doesn't have, it has okay, but it's not great. It's not as good as most lighter medium tanks, for example, where that's their strength. You're not going to detect one of them first before they detect you. So hopefully that was a good demonstration of how this chart works. I'm going to go through a couple others just to go through it one more time. And then after this, hopefully you can apply it to every other tank in the game quite easily. So next replay I have is the Ram. Tier 5 medium tank, and going into its cannon characteristics, looking at the chart again, its accuracy is okay. So going off that, you could play it close or far. Its penetration, however, isn't great. So I need to either play it close range or I need to flank the enemy. I don't want to be trying to shoot enemies way too far away because this penetration is not great. The gun depression, you do have gun depression. It's actually okay. So you could play on hills or on flat ground. You're a very diverse tank. You've got a good reload. Shell velocity, you do have okay shell velocity, but once again, overall, in regards to the cannon attributes, I need to play this thing more of close or I need to flank because my penetration is bad. So whatever category you rank the worst in outside of gun depression, that trumps any of the other characteristics that's good and tells you how to play it. So I need to play it close or flank, and because my penetration is bad, yeah, I do need to, like I said, close or flank. Now, its maneuverability is actually okay. It's not bad. I am a medium tank, not terribly like fast, like an RU-251, but not like terribly slow. So I can be more in that independent range. I can go get myself in positions quicker than other heavy tanks and destroyers. You can quickly get out of there. You've got good flexibility, good turret traverse, but that maneuverability kind of helps you evade or kind of get out of bad situations. So on that scale of being independent and needing support, you just have to know that balance. You have to know when to engage and disengage. If it's too bad of a situation or it looks really bad, it's not something you can support by yourself, fall back, disengage from that situation and get some more team support. And then looking at its armor profile, it doesn't have a lot of armor. It can be quite easy to pen. You can get some bounces on it. That is, like I had said, all about knowing your tank's armor's strengths and weaknesses. And then view range. So you can use that maneuverability and you can use that view range to get yourself in effective positions to spot the enemy, see them before they can see you, to help let your team know where they are, and then kind of independently roam where needs be to know how to engage the enemy, and if you're ever in a bad situation, to disengage the enemy. The third one, the Object 268. Looking at its accuracy, it's got good accuracy, so you could play good. It's almost more fair, so close mid-range, but debatable. Penetration is great, so you can do close to far. Your gun depression is fair, so you want to be more on like minor hills, and its shell velocity is good, so close to far. So for the most part, you can really play this thing from just about any range because of its cannon characteristics, and play on like more minor hills or flat terrain with it, nothing too steep. Then going into maneuverability. So your engine power to weight ratio is great. It's a fairly quick tank. However, in terms of flexibility, you don't have a turret, so you do need to be in a supportive position with teammates somewhat around you or that can help you, or you can be within view range so you don't get somebody coming out around a corner and you have no one that can even see where you are and they can just circle you and kill you or get behind you. So you do need to be in a position of support. In terms of armor, The armor is not too bad. Once again, you have to know how to use it. You have to know the strengths and weaknesses of that armor and how to angle it, as I'm doing through this replay, even though I am getting pinned and being aggressive as well, and do it exposed. They know where those weak points are. And then the visibility, which my visibility as a tank destroyer isn't great. It's not as good as like an M60 or a Leopard, or some of these other tanks that would much easily be able to see me if I'm moving around like the way that I'm doing. So I'm much more dependent on my team to kind of help be with me, see the enemy, and as they're kind of spotting and knowing the enemy is, that helps me make decisions of where to go and what to do next. And then lastly, just a couple noteworthy comments, because I do see this happen quite a bit in games, is a lot of tanks that don't have camo on. Now, camo does help your ability to not get spotted as easily. It helps conceal you a little bit better. So players playing without any sort of camo, it's not just for aesthetics, like it actually does do something. So playing with camo does help. Using consumables, provisions, things of that sort all help the performance of your tank. So I'm not going to go into detailed specifics about that, but just to answer those questions, that does help. And then in terms of the different rounds, I do have a guide that outlines how HE rounds. I know that can be a little bit tricky and it's a bit different, so I'll add the link in the description below. But you have rounds like your standard ammo, the ammo that just you shoot right at the beginning without really changing anything. And you have your premium ammo, which gives you more penetration. So when you're in a battle fighting and you think, oh, my penetration, like my armor is great, but then you get pinned and you're like, how did I get pinned? My armor is great. It's most likely they're using premium ammo that increases your level of penetration. So anyway, hopefully this is a guide, a chart that you can apply across every tank in World of Tanks Blitz, that as you're trying to figure out how do I play with this thing, look at the tank's characteristics. What is the tank good at? What is the tank bad at? And then position yourself according to be able to utilize those strengths and being able to protect those weaknesses. So anyway, this is the Muffin here. You guys stay cool and keep tanking.